Pleasure to welcome our guest today on this month's webinar, Hayley Van de Ven. Thank you, Hayley, for joining us.
Thanks, Sal. Thank you so much for having me. And hi, everybody.
Thank you. Hayley is the business owner of four Remax businesses here in Queensland. Three based in Brisbane, and one up in Mackay. And for those of you who are joining us outside of Queensland, Mackay is a 1.5 hour plane ride from Brisbane, which just is extraordinary and probably adds to the excitement about it all, Hayley. Yeah. Hayley, congratulations on recently being recognised once again as the #1 Remax business here in Queensland. That's an extraordinary achievement.
Thank you.
And well done to you.
That's kind of you. I mean, we've been really lucky with our journey with the growth of the offices. I know that, it's nice to come off the market that we've seen, so it's definitely back to reality now. But we've got some fantastic new business owners that are successioning me out in Mackay, which is exciting. A local couple out there which are really digging in now and making their mark on the community. So it's big transition time for me and lots of exciting things happening, and I'm excited to be here to share it with you today.
Thank you. Hayley is a really popular industry thought leader here in real estate in Queensland. She's very visible at all of our industry events. She does a lot of speaking. She's got a real non-partisan approach to the way this industry trains and new agents to the industry, as well as existing agents. We're so delighted to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure, and thank you for saying yes.
No worries.
So we're going to explore Hayley's journey thus far, because there is plenty more to come, I'm sure.
It's only just the beginning.
Yeah. You're a very passionate supporter of women in this industry, of empowering women in this industry to really achieve their potential. And that's a wonderful alignment with the Leading Ladies community ethos. So let's get into it.
Thank you.
I thought we might start, Hayley, if we can go back to teenage Hayley. What were your aspirations and your dreams for what your career was going to be?
I thought I was going to be a police officer. So for anybody that's trying to hack, my life, that's always a good key question. What did you want to be when you grew up? And I really, truly did. I started doing criminology, and straight out of school, I thought, okay, I'm going to have a year off, and I'm going to go back to New Zealand, and I'm going to go and do my degree. I was hoping for Otago University, and then, I'll kind of off I go. But I moved here. And I never went back, which is a bit crazy, but kind of little Hayley, or like young Hayley, really, really just went to school to play netball and eat my lunch. I had a great time.
Fabulous.
I played lots of sport, which I credit to lots of, my team building abilities these days. But honestly, I was a pretty average student. Even now, I kind of, push towards street smarts rather than really smart, but in saying that, I just think it's that grit and determination and drive and all of the things that you probably get from growing up in the country. Absolutely.
You cannot underrate street smarts.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
Totally.
Yeah. So tell me, how old were you when you arrived here in Australia?
I was 17, so I was turning 18, and I remember being at Auckland Airport, flying out, and my dad kind of, giving me a hug goodbye, and I'm crying, and my mum's bawling because she's like, oh, she's leaving, and my dad saying, oh, you'll be back, I'll give you 3 months. And I was like, yep, see you, Dad. And you think about those moments now, and I vividly remember that, and just thinking, when it got really tough in those early years when you're really homesick, I remember being like, no, I'm not going home, he's not going to be right.
Yeah.
So it was probably a big gift.
I think that speaks so much to courage and independence. I can't get my 20-year-old to pick the clothes up off his floor, and you moved countries on your own at 17.
I think it was just like opportunity awaited, and lots of kids that grow up in New Zealand, it's such a tiny country, and you're kind of, as you grow up, they talk about moving to Aussie, and then traveling the world, and it's so common for New Zealanders to go on OEs and never come home, and that's certainly what my journey looked like.
So how did you get into real estate? What attracted you to this industry?
Well, I was really fortunate. One of my mum's friends worked at a Ray White on Bribie Island, and when I got here, I kind of landed with my best friend who was living in Caloundra, and I was presented with the opportunity to become a receptionist or a sales cadet. Yeah, so as soon as I was 18, which was like a month later, then I was able to, get my sales registration and start, my cadet journey. I think I mentioned to you with Hayley Fallon, so it's, I look at that now and go, oh my God, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that takes me back. Hayley was, she was a champion. She's a great young woman. And so what did that role look like? What did that involve back when you're 17 or 18 in real estate as a cadet? What did you have to do?
You know what's funny? I look at the associates now that are in our business, because effectively it's kind of like a ground up role. So that sales cadet started on reception, did, property management, did, like contracts, grunt work, cleaning the rubbish bins, doing the dishes, running to get, no, trust me, there was no running to get coffees back then. It was making coffees in the kitchen for the salespeople. Instant, yep, everybody had their Nescafe. And you think, like there was just anything and everything that anyone in that team needed was your job. So it was like, okay, go and get my car washed, go and, put up these signs, go and put up the directional boards, whatever they needed. It was a really ground up approach. And I think that was really nice for me because I got to learn every single spot in the office. I had a little 6-month stint in property management, which actually served me incredibly well as a salesperson, because it taught me all the legislation and the on the ground things, but it also gave me an appreciation for property managers and what they actually did, because I think sometimes without that context you think, like, couldn't be that bad, or what do they do all day, or whatever it may be. But I was really lucky to have that at the start. So it was, the program was supposed to go for 12 months, but I think a few of us lucky cadets got to extend it out to 18 or 24, and that was just such a blessing. I look back now and at all the times that I would call Kylie and be like, I don't know if I can do this, I can't put up with this anymore, or that salesperson was mean to me, or whatever it may be. And she was really that guiding force to be like, you know what, it's a bad day, it's not a bad life. You've got to remember what's important to you, and have you spoken to your principal? And that was having that guidance, and I guess that voice of reason that was external was a very powerful tool. And I attribute that definitely to that stickiness. And the first difficult, 12 months, or the first 18 months, or when you're doing your time, it's like being an apprentice, right? Yeah.
There must have been moments when you thought, oh, I can't do this. It's too hard. I don't want to be knocking on doors
100%
every day.
I don't want to be going to look for, like market reports. I don't want to be cold calling. I don't want to do any of those things. Like all of the things that, like the excuses that you tell yourself, or the self-talk that you have that talks you out of a certain situation. Absolutely. All of those things ran through your mind. But I also laugh now when, like you get an excuse, or you be like, oh, what are you up to? Oh, I'm just, at an appraisal. Oh, cool. Where are you? Oh, I've just had to duck home, and I'm like, oh, you're asleep. I was like, have you been napping? Oh no, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, because I did all of those things. It's like, I would have fired me 10 times over. You just, oh gosh. Yeah.
If you think back to that time, maybe a bit of scar tissue, is there something that you wish that you knew then? Yeah. That you could share with somebody else, perhaps who's new to the industry?
Yeah, I
about
do.
Sticking it out. And
I think that's it. It's the big picture, and it's knowing what you want at the end of the day. And, just knowing self-belief, I think, is the one thing, that it is tough to start, but nothing that is easy is worth it. And that's so true, because you think about the lessons that you learn and how hard it is to go and present when you're 19 years old and go and talk to somebody about selling their house. Now, regardless of if it's a $500,000 unit, it's $1 million. Like I remember we used to have Canal properties on Bribie then that were, above the $1 million, and I would just dream of one day being able to, sell that kind of product. And it didn't matter if it was a first home buyer or, and actually it was probably like $200,000 back then, not 500,000. But you look at those situations and you think to yourself, if I had known now, how much value and how much work and how much work ethic and grit that you would bring to the table, I think that would have been a nice reminder, because there's plenty of self-doubt in sales, and as much as we put on that bravado of we've got this, do we really believe it?
Yeah, good point. You did say to me, I think you said to me, that you kept a diary. You started keeping a diary. You're writing down the things that you were seeing in the industry that you weren't proud of, and you wanted to make sure that you didn't carry forward into your career.
Well, that was a Kylieism. So, you know, when you have like, you know, your list in the back of your diary and you're like, these are the things that I like, these are the things that I don't like. So this is who I want to be. This is who I don't want to be. I think that was just important and just as important, sorry. And I used to work with a salesperson as a PA in that journey, and he was hilarious, and he's still in real estate now, which is just so cute. And he used to fall asleep at open homes. He would eat food out of people's fridges. He would like pick fruit off their trees. Like it was
so
next
wrong.
level. And I used to just like jot them all down. I'm like, don't eat food out of people's fridges. Don't fall asleep at open homes. Like really basic things that you would think, oh. But one, it gave me really great stories for later on in the piece, but it also gave me really, really good social proof of the fact that you actually don't have to be that good. You just have to be consistent.
Yeah.
And what you think you need to do versus what you actually need to do and show up every day are two very different things.
Yeah. Let's move on to circa 24-year-old Hayley. So your career is, you're building success as an agent. And I think this is when you realise your ambition is growing as well. What were you doing at this stage? What did your career look like at 24?
So I'd been selling.
Yes.
Yep. I'd been selling then for 6 years, and I'd kind of realised that something that I know now is that I'm never like truly happy, which is a terrible thing that I've really got to work on, you know, from a self, you know, work perspective. But I'm like, oh, it's not that I'm not happy. I'm just like, when is enough enough, right? So I'll be like, oh, you know, I'm doing this, and oh, I think I'm at that point now where I want something more. So I'm enjoying selling, but what's more? And when you're 24, sometimes that can be a bit of a limiting belief around what a 24-year-old deserves, or what they think they deserve, or what you really want. But in that situation, I had asked my principal if I could be the licensee of one of his offices. And like, I had the most nurturing, amazing, incredible principal. He, like, I think early in my career, I didn't realize how good I had it because I didn't have any reference point. But I look back now and I'm like, oh, Dennis Price, what a man. Like, I love that man. I could not have had a more nurturing and amazing principal, really. But at that point, he said to me, oh, kitten, you're just not ready. And I wasn't ready. I 100% know that now. But to hear that again, it was just like my dad saying to me, you'll be back. So it was like that little, So although at the time it hurt and I was really deflated and absolutely devastated, the reality is he was probably right, but it was just the kick up the backside that I needed to kind of take my career to the next level.
What do you think he should have said or could have said instead of, kitten, you're not ready?
And I think, look, I have those conversations with agents sometimes too, and the learning that I got from that is, okay, let's look at how we can continue to grow you. So you want to make this change in that transition. What things do we need to do, or skills do we kind of need to add to your, you know, bow to get you ready for that situation? So, you know, like, you know, in that situation, what type of leadership skills could you build? Because you're going to have to grow a team. Like, if you're going to have to manage a, you know, a team of people, what tricks have you got in your basket that you can kind of pull out at any given time that's going to set you up for success? Because you know what, like, I think about that now, and absolutely I was not ready. I think about the way that he was right. He was 100% right. But I just learnt the hard way instead of kind of being in that situation where I could have learnt and gone into those situations with a different set of skills. And I've tried to take some of those learnings in my business, and, you know, like in bringing people into my business, I've been like, okay, great, you know, like, what are the steps that we need to take to get you ready for this next piece of your career?
Fabulous. So you were on the radar of other agency groups at this stage, and no doubt you were getting multiple offers and being approached constantly. So something did pique your interest and it took you out of his business?
It did. I got an offer to have my own little business. No paperwork signed, or, you know, like the offer of a JV, putting, you know, like, let's build this business from the ground up and this is what it will look like. And, you know, it was a great opportunity for me because it was enough. It was not extra money. It was nothing to do with that. It was a title. And, you know, like you see lots of people do, they think, oh my gosh, this is a wonderful opportunity. And it absolutely was a wonderful opportunity because it's a huge opportunity for growth. But funnily enough, I didn't move for money and I did not move for culture or anything like that. It was literally a title and an opportunity to grow.
And what was the opportunity there? What did you take away from that experience then? What growth opportunities?
So the title was a sales manager for one, which was excellent.
One person.
Yeah, me and the receptionist. So it was my first opportunity to grow a team, and I got the real grassroots approach because it was a 50 square metre office. It was just me and the receptionist. So it was like, okay, so how am I going to start to grow market share in this space? How am I going to start to build a business? How do I recruit? And I taught myself, which was crazy, because I look at that now and think, what a silly way to learn. Like, why would I not have, had I have known what I know now, would I have invested in a coach? Would I have, got a mentor? Would I have, done all of those things to kind of, I guess, really, really escalate my growth and my own personal growth? Absolutely, but who was to know?
But it's probably a really important stepping stone along the way. And you talk about the difference between, we often talk about the difference between managing people and leading people.
Yeah.
And I imagine this was your foray and your step into learning how to manage people before you got the experience to be a genuine leader.
Yeah, and I think, the next step for that was to go into, again, a really cool title, Network Performance Manager, which was for a couple of offices, and it was just helping the principal build those teams out while I was still a selling agent. That was always my primary role, was listing and selling, which was great. But we were able to kind of, really grow that office to awesome market share and get a great footprint there. It's not there anymore, which is really sad. That was Aldrey Hooker Sandstone Point.
Oh, okay,
everybody knows Sandstone Point now because of the Sandstone Point Hotel, but back then we had like a really great little office there and an awesome vibe. A few of those agents are still in the industry, so hi guys. I still have wonderful relationships with those guys, and I think about the way that we built that team, and it was so small and so tight, and we were a really great team. And now you would call it an EBU with selling people, but back then it was just a little office, and the ability to kind of really personally grow.
And it's building blocks, isn't it? It's just, one experience leads you to the next experience and onwards,
Absolutely. Right. Lots of hard knocks
along the way.
Beat the lesson into you.
So I think from there, correct me if I'm wrong, I think from there about, 4 years or so, you then ended up in Mackay. And so you really were, an elite performing agent at that period in your life.
Yeah, I think it was a opportunity for me to follow my husband. He was working up there, and the great part about being part of a big network is they're everywhere, right? So it was excellent. I was able to slot straight into an office up there. They had a program called Captain's Club, so we all knew each other and we'd met each other before. It was a great opportunity to stay connected, and one of the things I love being part of a network is that it's not just about you, like you're part of something bigger, so that was really nice. And I had 2 years up there. Unfortunately, my marriage took a massive turn. I always laugh about you don't move to Mackay to save a marriage, you move to one to lose one. But that's again some growth. Good growing. Good lessons there. But that was another opportunity for me to understand a totally different piece of me, moving to after having 10 years in one patch where you're really well known. You can't even go to IGA without running into 3 or 4 people that you've sold for, and then to go to a brand new marketplace where you knew nobody and you had to start from scratch, when the market was starting to I think they were buying their houses for 600,000, and by the time they were finished building them, they were worth 480.
So it was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking, but it also gave me the context around working in a marketplace that, difficult conversations, and really set me up for success. I think about, when you look at having those difficult conversations with your vendors and knowing, how to position that conversation so that people still, they don't walk away feeling that like they've been stabbed in the heart. That this is the next step that they need to move on.
Care and compassion.
Care and compassion, and just being authentic to who you are as well, and sharing that that moment with people. Hard market to be in, but as you know, they don't stay like that forever.
No. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think here is when you did kind of achieve your ambition to be a licensee in charge?
Yeah, well, I was the licensee in charge at in Sandstone Point. And then when we moved to Mackay, they just needed one in the Mackay beaches.
Yeah.
But again, just a title, no responsibility, just a great opportunity from my perspective to feel really good and validated. So, you know, again, that was a really great lesson for me as a leader now about the importance of titles and how people feel about them, rather than minimising that, because, you know, the sad part is that I moved twice for titles that you just think, why? You were just doing the job that you were doing before. You just had to, you know, flash your name now. You know, and I look at that and I see that in our business all the time, you know, particularly in property management. We have, you know, conversations all the time about, you know, like investment manager, portfolio manager, senior property manager, you know, head of department, assistant to the director, you know, like all of these really interesting conversations. And again, as a leader, I've made the mistake of downplaying, you know, people's ambition. And what drove them? Was it money? Was it a title? Was it, you know, like success? Was it recognition? You know, and being able to model that on my own experience.
I think you're being hard on yourself though, because self-awareness is something that we grow into, I think. I don't think we're necessarily just born with a huge degree of self-awareness.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I look at things now and I just shake my head and be like, yeah, I was like that. I was like that once too. You know, I do, and particularly, you know, things with, you know, younger people in our team, I often laugh because I'm like, that's very cute. You've just had a very big night and you do need to come to work the next day because that's what you do when you're a grown-up. But, you know, that's just part of the journey, right? You know, you learn from those experiences and then you know, laugh at them later on down the track.
So after Mackay, you had an opportunity to actually get out of sales and you joined a franchisor group. So tell us about that and what did you learn from that? Because you were on the other side of the fence at that point.
I was on your side of the fence. Very exciting. So literally Remax had been, you know, working with me or calling me for quite some time from a recruitment perspective about coming over to Remax. They got me at the right day, at the right time. I wasn't movable. I was having a great time, but they just, you know, it was kind of post my divorce. I probably got to that headspace where I was like, you know what, I need a change. I need something new. I need a new challenge. I've been selling now for, you know, 12 years. You know, maybe I could do something else. And I don't know what that looks like, but, you know, I seem to like manifest these things that just fall into my lap sometimes and just at the right time. I'm a bit of like just take a real big bite and chew as quickly as you know can kind of person. And I was off to head office.
You say manifest, but the other way of looking at that is just taking the opportunities that present themselves to you or seeking out those opportunities.
Well, I've always been, you know, of the opinion that I've kind of been a natural manifester. Like I'll just talk about something that I really love or, you know, like, you know, you'll talk about me go and do a raffle or, you know, whatever, like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you win it and you're like, yes, yes. But for me, I kind of look at that situation and think it was an amazing opportunity and I could have said no. But saying yes was like a sliding door moment that completely changed my life. So I moved back to Brisbane. I met my husband in the last week that I was in Mackay, which was hilarious because I didn't really like him that much on our first date. It was a Wednesday. But, you know, it was nice enough. Sorry, Dan. Sorry, everyone knows Dan. So they were like, oh, of course he was. But, you know, I look back now and I think, had I have stayed in Mackay, where, you know, I had great friends by that time and wonderful opportunities and was just starting to build a really great little business, you know, it would have been fine. You know, but it was a good opportunity to try something new. And I jumped into the head office role in franchising, kind of with both feet. I had an incredible leader there, Keith Walker, who taught me so much about leadership, but so much about myself. And, you know, like one of the things that really sticks in my mind is I used to go in and be like, because I was new to franchising, right? So I'd go in and I'd ask him like 1,000 questions. And he'd like look up and he'd be like, yes, Hayley. And one day he very succinctly said, he's like, I don't know why you come in here and ask me all these questions because you know all of the answers and you're just, you know, like, you need to trust yourself. You know, and it wasn't put like that, but that was the paraphrase. But
what
you know,
gift. It's a gift to, you know, to have somebody like that in your life and in your corner.
Such a gift, and we still talk all the time. Like, you know, he and his wife are still incredible mentors of mine, and I've thanked him a million times for that conversation because I have those conversations with our team now. I'm like, You know what you're doing. Believe in yourself. Back yourself in. I will back you.
Yeah.
That's why you're here. You know, but you need to back yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, they do. And, you know, sometimes you fall flat. Sometimes you nail it.
Yeah.
But you learn along the way.
So you had a couple of years with the franchisor, and then probably the biggest opportunity and risk, excitement presented itself to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a baby while I was at head office with Dan. Turned out I did like him a little bit more in coming months. But when I came back from maternity leave, I was selling Deborah Evans' business in Morningside, the Remax Results business that is still there 27 years later. And I think I just sold myself into it.
Yeah.
So, you know, after a couple of false starts, the opportunity presented itself for me to purchase the business with a partner. And again, I kind of came home to our place in Tenerife and I was like, babe, should we buy the office at Morningside? And Dan said, where's Morningside? And then the next day we started the due diligence process and purchased the business. So talk about being like a D-type personality, quick decision maker. Yeah, we bought that business and at that time I think it had 4 agents in it. The existing owner stayed on as a conjunctional agent, which was such a blessing. And again, I almost inherited another incredible mentor on my journey.
Yeah.
You know, I guess Deborah, you know, has been around for forever and a day, and she's a real, she's a powerhouse. Yeah. Even to this day, you know, like she's successioning her business with her boys, and I often just have moments of like such adoration, you know, for Deborah and the business that she built, the footprint that she created, but also just the legacy that she's created there. And it's a good example for me about, you know, how teams can succession out successfully too. Yes. So I use all of those.
Fun. Yeah. Yes. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Can you remember, like, what was the overwhelming emotion? Was it fear or excitement?
Terror.
Terror. Yeah.
Absolute terror. You know, all of a sudden you've got debt, you owe somebody money, you know, and it's not just the bank for your house now, like you've got no plan B, right? Yeah. So you were all in. And I didn't have any support around this. It was, you know, there was no other option but success. Yeah. And there was plenty of potholes, plenty of things that I walked right into naively. I remember, you know, once our financial controller got scammed. And she sent $30,000 from the general to Bali or Thailand, I think it was. Oh. I remember just like,
oh no,
all the blood rushing out of my face and being like, oh, what do you mean it's payday tomorrow? Yeah. Like, what do you mean? You know, it was insane. And you know, walking into Deb's office and just saying, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah. And her saying to her PA, could you just pop down to the post shop and check the mail? We're just going to need a minute. And just closing the door, pouring me a wine, and then just talking some sense into me. You know, what are we going to do? Like, compose yourself, you know, and all of those moments where you just think, how the heck did we get through that? But you do.
And I imagine there's still moments like that. It's not somebody scamming $30,000 out of you, but as a leader, there are challenges every single day.
Oh, absolutely. Everything is always on fire all of the time, and it's just like, what are the biggest fires? So it doesn't matter how process driven, how streamlined, you know, like anybody's businesses are. The truth is, and it is the truth, that at any one time there's always 1,000 fires raging, and that is business, because it's never ever going to be perfect. And I think that that's just a realization that you get, and as you go along, it's like when you first start selling, right? Every knock hurts you. Yes. So much so that you almost wonder some days how you're going to get up. Yeah. And then after years, you know, selling, something crashes, you're like, you know, it sounds bad, but you're like, it's only money, we can always make more. Yeah. You know, there'll be another buyer there, there's plenty more fish in the sea, all of the, you know, things that we repeat to ourselves to, you know, get through those struggles. It's the same in business ownership. Yeah. The longer you go on, the more resilient you get, you know, and things pop up, you get a solicitor's letter, this person's suing you for that, blah, 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 and you're like, ah, what? You know, and as you go on, you just become more measured about those types of things, so it's just more resilient to the knocks.
So one office, you started obviously with one office, now you have 4. You have circa 80 people, a team of about 80. Would that be right?
Yeah, we like expand and contract. I mean, our teams grow quite rapidly as well.
Yeah.
So I think, with the change in the market, we may have just be closer to 100 now. But, there certainly last year in the market when it was, really buoyant, or the year before, we're probably up to 120, 125.
Yeah.
And that's because obviously teams change, dynamics change. We've changed the structure of our property management team substantially. We've encouraged a lot more offshoring, which has obviously been, helpful to our bottom line, but also to, having extra, people on team.
Yeah.
But I look at that now and think, would I have done it differently? Mackay was, the next year, so 2017 was Mackay. It was almost accidental, that growth, which sounds ridiculous, but I just had all this repeat and referral business coming at me, and it seemed like such a, easy kind of like, oh, why I'm just wasting all these opportunities here. And Joel tapped me on the shoulder and said, House, you can't have an independent. You need to turn this into an office, because we were kind of managing it remotely. A friend of mine from LJ Hooker had come across, and it's real funny because we had a property management business from the back of her studio, and people would rock up at her back door to pick up their keys, dodge, so dodge. Oh my gosh! But that was what the incredible Mackay business, which is it's like $5 million in GCI now, but you think now, back then it literally started. And I
from
think
the back of the studio.
Yeah, from the back of the studio, and really great customer service and awesome relationships, and something outrageous like calling people back.
Yes.
Can you imagine that agents would do that? So we were really, really fortunate in that journey, but it certainly paved amazing dividends and taught me some great lessons.
Yeah. And I know from talking to you, I admire the way that you equip yourself with new skills if you need it as your career is changing. Yeah. Can you tell us about business school? You went to business school. What did you take away from that? How has that contributed to your business?
I think that's really shaped me as a human, and the way that I approach situations. Because I'd only ever been a salesperson, I had no idea how to run a business when I bought that business. Not a skerrick. So fun. And I took the opportunity to join BDO Financial Education. Back then we used to just call it business school. So the format was 30 ladies in a room.
It was only women?
It was only women at the start, yep. So it was born from an incredible woman, Tanya Titman, who you may know. She's a bit of a Brisbane local, and she's across the road at BDO there. But there was things that I really, really adored about her as a mentor, and even to this day, she just has my utmost respect. And, one, she has done it all, and she actually has done it. There's lots of people that talk about it, and then there's other people that actually do it, and I think from me, she had 4 children. She had grown, 6 or 7 businesses, and she was self-made, she created this life for herself.
Yes.
As a businesswoman, as an accountant, as a mentor, and as a teacher. And she started that program to basically educate women on business. And I remember in its original format, it was, a group of 30 ladies, and they weren't real estate related at all, just business. And every month you'd go in for a day, and you would, do your modules, you'd get some homework, and then you'd be back next month for a new topic. And I think I didn't listen for 3 years. I just kept going, because I just was not obviously, in a headspace where I was ready to receive that information.
Yeah.
But I knew that I needed it. And that was really key to growth. So for me, I remember even having the boys, and Geordie coming with me. He was 6 days old, and he was just in his capsule, and I was like, got to go to business school. Came up on my Facebook memories the other day, and I was like, oh, look at him.
if ever there was an excuse to have a day off business school, it would have been having a 6-day-old baby. But you went.
Well, the girls loved it.
Yeah.
They just picked them up. The accountants literally, because it was, like it was run by an accountancy firm, obviously. And the girls just picked him up and off he went. And I didn't see him until he had to be come back and fed. And it was like, well, that's a distraction.
Yeah.
Carry on. And it was incredible. And they were all mums, so they understood it and they didn't feel like, I wasn't made to feel embarrassed for wanting to be there or for not wanting to miss out. And, that was a great example to me of how building an incredible tribe of women around you that don't judge you.
Yes.
Whether or not you want to stay home or you don't.
Yeah.
Because it's up to you. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's your decision.
You, I know from when we chatted off camera, you have great insight into different personality types. And this is something that's at a core part of your business. We often hear about personality profiling at employment stage, but you really use it as a leadership tool to drive and motivate your people.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us about that and what other people can take away from that in terms of understanding, whether it's the people they work with or their clients?
Yeah, and I think that has definitely, it's ingrained in our business culture. It's super important to me, and I actually use it every single day, every day, in conversations with our team members, in talking, salespeople through difficult negotiations, in dealing with our property managers, in, conflict. It really, really is one of those core tools that applies, so heavily to any part of our business. Even in teaching the administration team, often salespeople can be quite difficult, from an administration perspective. Not because they want to be difficult, just because the most important thing to them is the deal, right?
Yeah.
And it's right now. It doesn't matter what else is going on in the world. Like, this deal needs to be done now, and I really need this contract right now. So, I don't really care if the phone is ringing, I need it now. And, getting from a retention perspective of your team, teaching the EAs how to, better kind of, have better dialogue with the salespeople to get more out of them, but also for our team to motivate and inspire rather than dominate. What motivates you, Sally?
Yes,
the question, I can already tell in the way that we, interact, who you are and where your heart is. And, that enables me to have really great conversations with you, to be able to build like a quick relationship, like that time we were saying off camera earlier about, how long it took to grow those relationships with the team.
Yeah.
I look at that and say, okay, so we've got a heavy D type personality. They just want the nuts and bolts. They just want yes, no. They want a succinct, conversation. The eyes want a fluffy, warm conversation. They want hugs. They want, excitement. Yay, everything. Like, I saw a meme the other day that was like, the sales manager celebrating every single win that the salesperson makes. They're like, oh, you got coffee. Good work. And I laugh about that because I'm a high eye.
Yeah.
So I understand that, and then you've got your really, really analytical C-type profiles that everything is perfect. They love everything to just be, 0 emails in their inbox, the unattainable 0 emails in your inbox at 5 o'clock, you know. And then you've got the heart and soul of your business, which is the S-type personalities that would do anything for anybody, that are driven by fairness and equality and, the truth. So you look at those people in your business, and as I'm saying it, you're probably thinking about people that are within your business and the types of people that
I want to be a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of that.
And again, the beautiful part about that is you actually, have a natural style and an adaptive style. So if we talk about, like different people in your business that have come from somewhere else, they will exhibit often a type of personality based on where they've come from. And once you, provide them with psychological safety and a great environment, you'll actually see who they really, really are. So we do use that testing, like platform when people come into our team, but often I see that change. As a salesperson, super high eye. As a business owner, have definitely had to adapt into that D space. Not naturally, but mechanism to survive, right? Sometimes you have to be decisive, you have to make quick decisions, you have to do those things. They're not something that you'd naturally feel comfortable with, or, Julie Davis will talk about being in flow, and that's exactly the same thing. There's all of these tests out there that, there'd be colours and the blue and the red personality, and they're all the same thing. They just have great new names.
I love it. I'm definitely going to look into that. Really, really,
you
really
will not turn
interests
back.
me.
You will not turn back.
Really interests me.
Yeah, and I definitely, I'll often, you know, Sarah and I will joke about how to get the calf in the barn.
Yeah.
And the first question is like, okay, well, what personality type are they?
Yes.
What motivates them?
Yeah.
You know, like when we talk about how to get the calf in the barn, what's going to get them excited about jumping out of bed? What's going to get them excited about picking up the phone?
Yes.
Good question.
Yeah.
If you know that, by the way, just type it in the chat. I'd love to know. But, you know, the reality is that, you know, those things help us grow better, stickier, warmer, more connected teams. And I think without them, we wouldn't have half the retention that we do, because we've got a lot of people that have been in our business for a long time, you know, that have been with me from day one. You think about, we were just talking about Kylie before we jumped on, and, you know, like I think about what an incredible human she is and how naturally she adapts to people's personalities, because that's who she is as a person. And lots of salespeople do it innately, but the science behind it is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you work with your husband. You mentioned Dan's in the business.
Yeah.
And that's the case for quite a lot of people in this industry. They might work with family, with their daughters, sons, husbands, partners. How do you navigate the boundaries or the line between personal and business? You're the boss in the office.
Yeah. The boys say that I'm the boss at work and Dad's the boss at home. That's my two boys. And look, sure, he can believe that. That's fine. But, you know, ultimately we do have a really great working relationship, in the sense that we really don't cross paths.
Yeah.
So my job is to run the business, and his job is to sell houses.
Yeah.
And he does that. He does his own thing. He's a, you know, conjunctional agent, so he runs his own business inside of our business, which I think also makes it, you know, our business model is very business to business anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of return and service. And also my leadership style is, you know, kind of lead to serve rather than lead to dominate. So, you know, the conversations are different, but I let him do his thing, because he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He doesn't need me, you know, cracking the whip and turning into a psychopath. Certainly not in the office, and definitely not at home. But, you know, that's been something that I think we've done quite well right from the start. It was really church and state. Like, you know, my job is to run the business.
Yeah.
That is, and if you asked him now anything about the business, he wouldn't even probably give you the answer, because we don't talk about it.
Yeah, he focuses on his lane.
Yeah, and if I needed him for advice or an opinion, I would ask. But other than that, you know, like, we don't even have like a monthly meeting with like a whatever. He's like, it's your business. You do what you need to do. And he just gets on. Well, I can see what he's doing. But, you know, like if I was to check on him, he'd kill me. So it's like, you know, from our perspective, I think that's been really healthy and key but also, you know, and I get this in feedback sometimes from agents that I recruit into the business. There is nothing worse than a husband and wife bringing their personal baggage to work
100%.
and how that destroys a culture of a business. So like being mindful of that, again, just taking those learnings from other people and, you know, kind of laying that down in the business has been super important, because there's nothing worse.
Yeah, well, you obviously do it very well.
Look, I'm sure there's some days where I'm like,
I drive around the block a couple of times before going in, before walking through the front door.
I am lovely.
Now, you've mentioned your boys, Cooper and Geordie, so they're quite young.
Yeah, 8 and 4.
Yeah, 8 and 4. So that's tough. How do you manage that balance between, I don't want to say juggle, I don't like that word, but you've got to get the balance right between work and home, and make sure that you don't miss out on anything. I saw a post that you did on social a couple of weeks ago. I loved it.
Could have been anything.
No, but you talked about how your team supports you around that balance and making sure you don't miss anything in your family life. And they sit down, I don't know if it's the beginning of the year or the beginning of the month, and pencil out time in your diary. That's not negotiable, that's your family time, depending on what the boys have going on at school and their life. So it really does take a village to raise a family, I think, and we see this in this industry. We've got some wonderful ladies that I know in our network that where their whole team have pulled together to help them in the early years when the kids were little to manage it all.
And it is so true. It does take a village, and you know, like, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, someone in your team having your back, you know, and running to get the kids when you're in an appointment, or, you know, there's been all sorts of situations in our business where our team has really kind of helped my life from falling apart. Yes. When I say, you know, your life from falling apart, you're here, your son's, you know, the school's called and he's sick and he's got to go. He's not really sick. Yeah. It's just, oh, I've got a sore tummy. And then imagine that 10 minutes later they're fine because they're sitting on the couch in the office with an ice block. Yeah. I'm bouncing around like there was not a problem in the world. Yeah. But the ability to have a team that supports you like that, you know, just the small things like somebody reminding you it's book week. And, you know, like, I mean, in the early days, there was lots of moments where I would have Geordie in the office with me because, you know, like the business is still quite new then, and it really it revolved around me being the kind of heartbeat of the business. Now we have a little bit more flexibility, but we're 7 years in, so, you know, thank Christ we have a bit more flexibility. But in those early stages when the boys were super young, you know, there were so many things. MK, bless her, would literally have Geordie while I'd go to appraisals. He'd be asleep in his capsule before he could go to daycare, and that was reality. There's been different times when we've had nannies in the business. You know, the beautiful thing about being self-employed is obviously, you know, you get to employ these people that can assist you in the, you know, like in the whole scheme of things, and having a personal assistant, you know, having somebody that, you know, in the early days could really hold things together for you is key. And finding those people that, you know, is rare, because great people are rare. And, you know, when you get them, holding on to them is so important. But, you know, also as you go, like, you know, you've got different seasons in your life, and I have now learnt to understand that, you know, again, it's like the unachievable zero in my inbox. Sarah almost died before because she saw the 1,000 unread or voicemails that are unlistened voicemails. I just return people's call. I don't listen to voicemails, just if ever, you know, you're awaiting one, I'm sorry. But the reality is that, like, you know, at different times in your life, you need different things. And sometimes you need more support than others. Sometimes, you know, you need, you know, like, and you go through different challenges. Like, I think about how much time and love and support was afforded to me when my mum was sick with cancer. And I look at that now and I think, how did none of my salespeople leave? I was like gone for a year. I was at the hospital, at the RBH, like, you know, and you just think, they stayed because they knew where your heart was. They knew you authentically as a person. They wanted to support you through that, rather than, you know, running for the hills. And, you know, having that key team around you was the part that kept the business going while I wasn't there. It was incredible.
And I think that's a really important message, that surround yourself with the right people, and you can do extraordinary things.
Absolutely, and that's been another huge learning for me this year, understanding what my capacity was around scale, and having someone like Sarah come into our business, and you know, the ability to, you know, offload so many things, but also bring somebody along on that journey, and, you know, help to build them, you know, into what you want, but also what they need, you know, to kind of take the business to the next level, and you know, effectively everybody's careers, because it's a great new stepping stone for me too.
Absolutely. What is your proudest career achievement to this point?
Oh, wow. I don't know.
I heard you say one just before, Sarah.
Did you? Oh God. Oh yeah. Oh well, I won't repeat that. But no, I think, you know, for me, there are moments. There's so many proud moments, and you know, in 2020, I started working in the Sherry store, and one of the things that she taught me to do was like reflect. So that's something that I didn't really do before. I didn't stop to smell the roses. I just kept going, oh, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And every quarter, when I do a reflection on the last quarter, in the last 90 days, you know, I would then have moments that I'm like, you know, what are the things that I'm proudest of? And so at any given moment, there's all sorts of things. And sometimes it's like daily gratitudes, right? Some days they're small, and some days they're huge. But the acknowledgement of those things enables you to go, okay, there were some good days. You know, particularly when you feel like you've been run over by a bus. It's really nice to reflect on those things. So I don't know that I have a proudest moment, but I have a collection of really, really proud moments, and usually they revolve around seeing people grow
Yeah.
and seeing, you know, others achieve incredible things, but also, you know, seeing people develop into, you know, like...
You must be proud, like a parent.
I'm so proud, and
Yeah.
I'm proud at seeing people grow huge, incredible businesses. You know, when someone goes from $150,000 in GCI to, you know, $600,000, or they break the $1 million mold, or they build a $2 million business.
Yeah.
You know, when you have those moments of, you know, you're not doing the work, and you're, you know, the one that is there being their biggest cheerleader often, but you're not in the day to day, and seeing them grow into somebody else. You know, like seeing salespeople who might have been super naive, you know, like develop into these incredible business owners that you just think, wow,
Yeah.
you have absolutely blown me away. They're probably my proudest wins.
Yeah.
I love seeing our team get up on stage. I love seeing, you know, like Kylie being number one for the last 6 months in the country. You know, I'm incredibly proud of her because, you know, she probably never stops to be proud of herself.
Yeah.
But I will be madly proud for her in the moment. You know, you just can't recreate those moments, you know, and it's just nice to, you know, share those with people because they deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what fills your cup outside of work?
Oh, is there a thing? No,
Wine?
I wine, I'm a Grey Goose drinker. No, I guess, like, I'm really, really lucky to have amazing friendships, beautiful people. Along the way, I've collected this, you know, like tribe of just incredible women that, you know, I'm really privileged to have as call my friends that I can call, and lots of them run their own businesses. So, you know, it's a different conversation, which I really, really enjoy. But, you know, Sundays are for the boys. That was one of my like stipulations, and you know, kind of the new me was taking that time for the kids and really making this year. Like I've been on more. I think Sarah landed here and I just went on holiday like 6 times. I've been, you know, I've just every year that I missed out on a holiday as I've been growing the business, I've taken this year. So thank you very much. But you know, that was massive for me too. You know, actually having time with Dan. We had our first holiday together.
How exciting, no children. How
I know.
wonderful.
We went to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And when I say holiday, like I don't just mean weekend away. Like we had, you know, and we still like each other.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I know that's always a goal on my board every year is to, you know, stay married. And people laugh, but you know, once you've been through a divorce, you're kind of like, sure, it's goals. Yep, that's an achievement. And I always have so much admiration for couples that, you know, particularly couples that work on the in the industry that have been together for like 30 years or 40 years. I'm like, you love what you do. But you know, that outside of work, I used to play netball. Now I'm old, broken, sciatic nerve.
Hardly.
So I was like, oh, well, I've been trying to do Pilates, which is hilarious, but you know, I'm like that uncoordinated person.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What do you do for self-care?
Yeah. I really, really have tried to drink more water. Yeah. You know, like to eat better. Yeah. I'm terrible at that. You know, I've had some time at Gwingana, which was amazing. Yes. You know, just even like switching off the tech. Yeah. You know, that 4-day detox was almost like death, but I do it again and again and again. Yeah. Even just switching off from your phone, like being away. I remember I had a salesperson that left during that time, and our team were like, oh, good God, Hayley's not here. Yeah. And, you know, like nothing actually burns down when you're not there, but it's just how you feel about it, right? Yeah. And they handled it so beautifully. Yeah. They were so great about it, and, you know, that really just confirmed to me that I was like, we're going all right. They know what to do and what you would consider one of the biggest like disasters of your business. So it was great.
I always think for me, my girlfriends are my self-care as well. Yeah. And you've mentioned it, you know, that tribe that we have around us.
Love a margarita.
That we can, exactly, that we can just sit down, chat to, vent. They support us through good and bad. Yeah. So important to have them and to have that regular connection with them.
It really is, and I feel that more and more, like, you know, as the kids are getting older as well and you have more time to yourself, that is key. You know, having those good group of girlfriends or those, you know, the people that you can talk to when, you know, you're just having a bad day. Yeah. Because not every day is, you know, wins. And it's nice to be able to have them like pick you up and dust you off occasionally, even if you're going to have a cry in the car.
Yes, absolutely. And don't you think the wins are sweeter because of the challenges that we also have? If we never face challenges and we never experience disappointment or defeat, then we wouldn't know how good success is.
Absolutely. And I also think, you know, the thought process to me, and as we build out our teams and our businesses, I often, you know, say to the girls, like, I don't want to be at the top of the mountain all by myself. It's no fun when you've got no one to celebrate with, you know. So it's really important that, you know, when we are lifting the team and when we are growing the team, that we're growing all of us. You know, it sounds really cliche to be like, there's no I in team, but the reality is that there's no fun in being there all by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to share that with other people.
Yeah, grow together.
Yes, And my last question, because I like to ask this one at the end, is what keeps you awake at night? You know, I don't know, some people call it the 2 a.m. club, but what is it that keeps you awake at night? My oldest son has got ADHD, right? And I think to myself, like, at 2 a.m, never Google. You know, and that's the stuff that I do. Like, you know, I feel like the business and, you know, where we've kind of got to from a, you know, growth perspective and people perspective and all of those things, I know that that's all on track, but it's the personal stuff that keeps him awake at night. Like, I think about him and how I could help him or better support him, or the love or the time, or, you know, like the lessons that we could teach him. And it's, you know, like, that's the stuff that really keeps me awake at night. I just worry about, you know, what life has in store for kids, and, you know, in this kind of age of social media. And he's incredibly smart, but he's also just, you know, he just walks out of school and walks home, puts on the telly. I'm like, where's Cooper? Oh. I'm like, great. He's at home, is he? Great. I better rush around and check on him. And there he is. So, you know, things like that, they absolutely scare the crap out of me. Mum life. Yes, it is mum life, isn't it?
I can't
and they
control
grow
that.
up, and then the challenges change, and sometimes some challenges get easier, some get harder. So challenges implies hard, but you know, the worries. Sometimes the worries.
Tell me it gets better.
Different.
Tell me
it does get better. It does get better. But then you come full circle, Hayley, and you get they're 23 and they're 20, and it's Anthony and I just again. And sometimes you just want them to come home and sit down at the dining room table and tell you about their day, and they're too grown up for that anymore. So enjoy every moment now. I wanted to say, sorry, one last question. You have been a fabulous supporter of Leading Ladies from the very start. So what do you like about this? What do you see as the value in us creating a community like this?
Look, the thing that I really love, and this is, you know, largely owed to you and your passion for this space, Sal, is that, you know, this isn't just you being brand centric. You know, this is ladies, you know, and it doesn't matter if you're with Ray White or you're with Remax, or you're with Harcourts, or wherever you're from. The ethos is about collaboration and building a community. You know, I don't think of myself as a feminist. I think of myself as a peopleist. And for me, I don't really care if you're a guy or a girl. That doesn't matter to me one iota. But what I do see is what I've experienced, you know, a lot of times in my career, and often, you know, the thing that I remind myself of is that, you know, it's important for us to role model, you know, the behaviours and the things that we want to see. You know, they joke about being the change that you want to see in the world, right? And the reality is that, you know, if I could inspire one salesperson to take the risk to build a business, to build a team, to, you know, take their career to the next level, I'd be so stoked. You know, and it's hard. There's no, you know, but nothing that is easy, you know, is worth it or worthwhile. And I kind of look at those, you know, opportunities that you're giving women to connect with each other. And I just think to myself, thank you for being that change. Thank you for doing something, for not just talking about it, and for taking action in a space where, you know, we have, like, if you look at the demographics of people that sell real estate, like, it's probably just as many women. So it's not a minority. But when we move into them building businesses and teams, and then building big teams and big businesses, the pool gets a lot smaller.
It does.
And, you know, like, some female leaders in the industry, and I've been so incredibly blessed to call them my mentors, have shown me you know, like, and done exactly that for me. And I would love to see more people do that within our industry, and you know, just lift that bar, but inspire other people to try something, you know. And who cares if you fail? Yeah. What I say before, it's not even money. You can always make more.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, what is the worst thing that can happen? I think we talked about that on the phone, you know, like my dad said that to me one day. He's like, what is the worst thing that could happen? And I was like, I lose everything. And he's like, well, how would you feed your family? And I was like, well, I'd sell real estate. Yeah. And he's like, well, do you like selling real estate? And I was like, absolutely love selling real estate. And he's like, well, what's so bad then? Yeah. Good question, huh?
It's a fabulous question. There's an expression, you can't be what you can't see. Yeah. So thank you, Hayley, for saying yes to opportunities like this.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So that you can be seen and you can inspire and challenge other people in this industry, not just women, but you can challenge people in this industry to have a hugely successful career. Yeah. We just thank you sincerely for joining us today for this month's Journeys webinar. It's been such a treat. Thank you to everybody who joined us online. We look forward to seeing you next month.
And I didn't even say a swear word. Go me.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.
Bye-bye.